So I am working on a side project which is actually a SaaS, right? This is a SaaS for boat enthusiasts, people who are interested in boats, yachts and speedboats, who like to be on the sea, right? So if I go into the dashboard of this application I'm showing you right here, and if I look into where it says boats, you can see there are various boats, right? We have your Family Voyager, Sunset Cruise, Wave Runner, and all the likes. But for you to make a booking to Hub and Hover, you need to subscribe. You need to have a membership, right? You need to have a membership, and there are 3 membership plans that you can subscribe to, either the standard, premium, or elite, right? Then you have to select the product that you're interested in, right? Okay, so for that I am using Polar, which is a great software for developers, for handling payments, right? So I just want to show you how I am using Polar to handle subscriptions on this current project that I'm working on right now. Okay, at this point I have a user who's logged in, which is this particular user, right? Everything else is still work in progress on the dashboard. But if we go into the membership, you can see like there's no subscription that has been selected by this particular user. For example, you can see it still says subscribe here, right? It still says subscribe. If I click what says billing, you can see there will be a toast that says no customer ID found, which basically means this user is not yet subscribed to any of these plans that we do have. But let me show you a user who's actually subscribed. There's this other user who's actually subscribed. You can see their membership. Under membership, they actually subscribe for the elite package, right? And these are the benefits that they do have from the elite package. You can see it says current plan here. If I click where it says billing here, I'll be directed to a portal, right, which is actually a Polar portal, where I can actually be able to change a plan, right, or view the subscription, right? So this is the customer himself can go and change a plan, or else view the subscription from there, right? Okay, so we're going to do that. I'm going to show you how I handle subscriptions. We're going to implement webhooks. We're going to be working with webhooks so that each and every time whenever there is a change or subscription updated or a customer is been cancelled, we'll show you how we can handle that, right? So don't worry about the rest of the stuff that you see here. It's still work in progress. I promise you there will be a complete tutorial that will be coming in your way in the next few weeks, right? Let me go back to this user who's not yet subscribed here, right? I just want to go back to the one page and sign out. If I sign out, log out, let me try to get a subscription. I'll select the standard. If I select standard, the fact that I'm not logged in, there will be an auth dialog that shows here, right? So you need to be signed in first before you select a membership plan. So we're going to implement authentication with Better-Auth, which is great to use, right? And if you look into my database, in this case I'm using Neon database, I do have a lot of users who actually signed into the application, but not everyone actually subscribed. Let me go where it says subscriptions. On the subscriptions, you only see one person who's actually subscribed, right? So this is the subscription that I do have, and this entry into the database, it'd be via webhooks, right? So let's quickly go and see how we can implement this. For a start, I provided you with the starter code, which you can find on this repo here under this URL, right? So this is the starter code. Everything is well designed for you. So once you have that, you just clone it and you have it on your machine, and you should have something like this. If you look into these 3 files, the page that you find under membership, right? So under dashboard membership, you'll find there are squiggly lines, which means there's an error there, and also there are some sections which are commented out. Same applies if you go under the dashboard sidebar. So this you can find under components, dashboard sidebar. You find also there are some squiggly lines that we have. Same applies with the subscribe button. So this is basically what you should be seeing currently on your project, right? Okay, so we're going to focus mainly on the subscription part. We're not going to worry on the design and the authentication. That has been sorted out for you. I'll just walk you through how I've implemented my authentication if it's necessary. Otherwise, let's proceed. Right, so the first things that you need to start with is basically to set up your account on Polar, right? So just go to Polar.sh, and the way to start is simple. Right there on their landing page, you can just write the name of your application just like that here, that you'd like to have, and click get started. Once you click get started, you're prompted to authenticate yourself. You can either continue with GitHub or continue with Google. I'm going to continue with GitHub, since that's the one that I used to register this account of mine, right? So it's straightforward. It will take me straight to my dashboard, right? I've already set up the name of my application, so everything is simple and straightforward from here, right? But for the purpose of this video, it's development on a local machine, so we will utilize what they call the sandbox, right? And also, if you're testing things out on your site, you need to utilize the sandbox. For that, once you're in your account, you can just go on the bottom right hand side, right? Bottom left hand side, sorry, just here, bottom left hand side, and you can see the option to click go to sandbox, right? Perfect. I advise you, first of all, create your normal account, then utilize the sandbox. Otherwise, if you go to the sandbox straight, you have issues in testing out your code. You see like there will be timeouts that you'll be experiencing on your terminal, right? So I'm going to click to go to sandbox. So I need to log in again. I need to be authenticated, right? So I will just continue with GitHub, right? So the name of your application should be the same both on the normal production Polar dashboard as well as on the sandbox. If you come on my sandbox here, you can see actually I do have a revenue here, which is actually a fake amount, right? And I do have a lot of things like the sales, the customers already that are here, right? But let's start with the products, right? Click where it says products there. This is the part where you're actually able to add products. I've shown you these products that I do have in my application. If you come here, I do have standard, premium, and elite, right? But in this case, you can actually add another product. To add a product, it's simple. Just click where it says new product here. You need to enter the product information. I'll just say this is a test product, just like that. You can enter the description. You can write it in markdown format, and you can have that information perhaps on your application. You can play around and manipulate markdown so that it displays nicely on the UI of your application. But me, I didn't use that, right? These are actually hard-coded data. You can actually fetch this even from the dashboard, from the database, sorry. You can fetch this from the database and play around how you can do. But the most important thing that you're interested in here is actually the product ID. I will show you how to use the product ID, right? So this is a subscription. I like how Polar is. It takes you straight to choose what you want to set your pricing on. If you set monthly or yearly, obviously it will be detected as a subscription. Straightforward, straight to the point, right? You can add media, which is actually an image of your product, so that on checkout, the buyers can actually see what kind of a product they're buying, right? But in this case, I don't need it. It's not necessary, right? Then when we look on the metadata, right? If you look at my code, I'd like to show you something that I've implemented. Let me quickly go into the code that we do have. On my code that I do have here, if I go to, for example, page, you can see I do have something that is called a subscription, current membership, available membership, right? So some of this is part of the metadata that you can put on your products, right? So that you can be able to play around and see how you can utilize that metadata. So it's fine. I'll proceed from here. There are other options that you can put, like, access to GitHub repos, as well as Discord invite and file downloads. But we're not interested in that. Ours is just a subscription that we need. So we are fine. Let's make sure like we put the pricing here. The pricing, I'm going to put it on $250, right? Once you're done with that, let's click create product. right? Once the product is created, you should be able to see it on the list of the products that you do have, right? Let me quickly show you something. If I click on my Elite product here, right, it's a subscription already. You see, it's already detected it's a subscription, right? No orders is yet, right? But I would like to show you this part here, which says metadata. On my metadata, on my product, let's say for example that I do have here, right, I want to make sure like I play around with these things like unlimited bookings, VIP access, or book up to 30 days in advance. Which other products don't you have, right? So this is where now I can now utilize metadata, right, to say here's VIP events, I'll set it to true. Here's priority booking, set it to true. Maximum bookings, I just set it to 10,000 because bookings are unlimited, yeah, right? But in my case, just set it to a bigger number, right? So that's how you can play around with metadata. Once you're done with that, you can hit save, right? So I'll just quickly hit save. So those are all your subscription products that you do have, right? Okay, so that's with it, with setting your products. The same way we did on the sandbox here is the same way you can do on your normal your new organizational dashboard, right? Exactly. So when you exit the sandbox, you can just click here to exit sandbox, and you are directed to the normal dashboard where you sell live products, right? So it's simple. You can just click here where it says exit sandbox, and you'll be directed to, you can see I'm now on the production dashboard, right? Okay, I'll just go back to the sandbox again, right? So that's with it with regards to setting up your products. And what I did in my case on products, the thing that I'm interested in on all my products, because I have my hard-coded data on my application, but I'm interested in getting the product ID. For that, you can just click here and copy product ID, save it somewhere where you have the data of your application. Let me quickly go, if I can see quickly where my data is, right? Let me go to, let me make some of these things. Let me go to my landing page. I don't have that. Membership plans, where do I see that? It's actually in components, home plans, right? So in components, under home, where I see plans, do I have that data? I have actually plans, which is in plans data. There it is, exactly, right? So in plans data, you can see I have the product ID, and I'm actually getting that through environmental variables. Make sure it's a next public environmental variable, because you would like to expose this to the front end, right? Okay, so that's that we're done with that. In this application, I'm going to be using ResuRM, and I'm going to be using my database, which is a Neon database. And for authentication, I'm going to be using Better-Auth, right? Better-Auth, right? Let's quickly now look at the environmental variables that you need in your application, right? I'll bring this text editor that I do have here, right? So these are all environmental variables that you need. I'll just quickly copy that and go to my text editor. Then on the root of my directory, I'm just going to create quickly a .m file to put my environmental variables. Make sure when you create a .m file, it's actually included in the .git ignore, so that you don't push your secrets to GitHub, right? So once you have these, make sure you populate your Better-Auth secret for, you know, working well with Better-Auth, and also the URL with this optional. Go and grab your database URL from Neon and go to Google console, if you're authenticating with Google, obviously go and get your Google client ID, grab your Google client secret and your GitHub. Right now, this is what I did on my application, right? For testing things out, I actually have this is from the sandbox, right? So this is my local host. You need to have these as well from the sandbox. Let's quickly go to the sandbox. It will be the same it won't be the same tokens and secrets that you use in your production, right? So what you do on your sandbox is the same that you're going to do on your production dashboard for Polar, right? So we're still on the sandbox. Right now, let's look into how we can get hold of the Polar token and the webhook secret, right? Exactly. So you just go on settings here, right? And for webhooks, you just quickly go on to you go to where it says webhooks here. But for the general token you're gonna use, just on settings, you land on general, then just down here where it says developer, you just click here and create a new token. So it's simple. Click and just say the name of your token, what it is. You can set the number of days when that token expires. I'm just gonna let this to 1 day. I'm gonna select all, right? Once I select all, then I just create here, right? Okay, once I click create, you can see there's my new token here, which is here, right? I'm not going to use this token, so I'm just going to simply revoke it. But that's basically how you can create a token, right? You also need a webhook so that you can be able to work with whenever there's a change, an event that is changed within your app, you need to perhaps update and sync with your database, right? We'll see how we'll do that later on, right? But in this case, in my example, you can see you need to have an endpoint for your webhook. In my case, I was using Ngrok, which allows me to test things locally, right? So there you can add another new endpoint. For example, click endpoint and you can put the name of your endpoint here. Then here you can generate the secret. Then you can tick the events that you want to listen to, right? So for example, me, I ticked all the way from checkout, customer, up to product updated here. I checked all these. Then I created create generate. Then you can populate your .m file, right? Exactly. So you can see this is where you are getting all these now environmental variables, right? Then for the next public Polar environmental variable, we need to detect whether we are in production or sandbox. So just make sure, like if you're testing locally, you just set this to sandbox. Otherwise, if you're testing into production, you need to set this to production, right? Perfect. For Better-Auth, it's straightforward. You can look at the documentation, it's straightforward. There's in this installation guide here. You can even generate a secret from here and copy that and also set the Better-Auth URL. But otherwise, this is not part of authentication tutorial. It's basically a tutorial for subscriptions using Polar, right? Okay, so now we have our Polar set up. Let's now go into our code editor and see how we can move to the next step. Right, let's assume you have everything set up and your environmental variables are actually all populated, right? Let's I'm just going to quickly close this, right? So let's now go and set up Polar, right, and instantiate an instance of Polar on our local host machine, right, on our local host server rather. Okay, cool. Let's quickly go and look at the documentation, but before we do that, perhaps we need to migrate our schema to our database, right? You can see there's no migrations here, right? So I've populated just a simple way of how you can do it. There is a script that you can just run. So I'm just going to quickly open a new terminal here, right? I'm just going to use git bash on my side, right? Then basically I'll just run pn, since I'm using pnpm here, you can see I'm using pnpm, right? Then I'll just say run. Okay, so it's a dbgen, right? Just like that, so that I can generate schema. So I should have a migrations folder inside here, right? There we go. Right. Okay, so what's that is cooking behind the scenes. We can basically move to the next step that I would like to quickly show you. Okay, we do have a migrations folder here, right? There's our migrations folder, and right, let's talk of something else whilst that is cooking under the hood, right? Okay, so with regards to having Polar working on your application, in my case I'm using Nextjs. If you go where it says integrate here and framework adapters, you can simply install Polar Nextjs installed and run these things, right? And that can simply work nicely for you, right? But I had an issue when I was trying to do something like this with my subscription products. Where is it? To create a checkout, right? Because you need a Polar access token and a success URL, all these things. So I'm not gonna follow this. Rather, I'm gonna reference the API. I'm gonna make use of the API reference. I'm gonna create an instance. I'm using TypeScript in my case, so I'm gonna create an instance just like this. Then I'll use my route handlers to do something like this, right? So let's go into our code, right? Inside our code editor, let's go inside. Perfect, right? So inside lib, right? So this is actually ran. So let me quickly run the other tip to sync my database, right? npm run db migrate, right? I'm using the same database I was using when I was testing things out, so this might just fail, but it's not a problem because I do have that already. Actually, it's applying, so I do have an error because already exists, right? So I don't need to run this because I've already ran it already. Okay, cool. So I'll just do clear here, right? But in your case, it needs to be successful. You can debug any errors that you see, right? Okay, so that's with our database. Let me quickly go into the lib folder. Inside lib, I need to create a Polar. I'll just create a new directory, right? I'll just create a new directory here. So I'll just click file and say it's Polar, right? Then // index.ts. Just like that. Then it creates a folder, right? So I can instantiate my Polar here, right? So in that case, let me just bring the code that I do have already. I'll just bring this here. You can take note, I'm actually using Polar.sh SDK, right? And if you look in the packend.json, I do have Polar.sh Nextjs. You see where it's gonna work, but I also have the SDK, right? Meaning that I'm following this here, right? So this is basically what I did here, right? Okay, but in my case, I also extended, right? I need to be able to track whether I'm working inside is it production or sandbox. So based on that environmental variable I showed you earlier on, I'm not in production, I'm in sandbox, because I've stated here like I'm using a sandbox, right? So that's basically what you're doing. Let's do like that, right? Okay, we'll come to create other files inside here, which will be server side, which will be server files which can be executed. It's like server actions, right? We'll come and create them here later on, right? So once we're done with that, let's go now and create a route here for handling our Polar requests, and all other things, right? So for that, and API, inside API here, we need to create another folder as well. In that case, I'm gonna click where it says API and type in Polar, just like that, right? So inside Polar, I need a checkout route as well as a webhook route, right? So I'm gonna create a new 2 folders. The first one is checkout. Just like that. I need to instantiate this route, so I can use route .ts, just like that. Then I also need another route for webhooks, dealing with webhooks, right? So click where it says Polar, create. I'll just create it webhook. Please take note how you write this. You can either say webhooks or webhook. I'm just gonna say webhook, and I'm gonna instantiate this API route with route.ts, right? Route.ts, just like that. Okay, perfect, fine, right? So what is it that we need now to do, right? So we need to create a checkout session, right? We need a way of handling a checkout session. Let's quickly go in our doc. if you go on our documentation, this is how you can do to create a checkout, right? You need to have something like this. Await Polar checkouts.create, something like that, right? So in our case, in our Nextjs application that we do have, we can do it simply, and you can see the payload that you do get, right? This is the payload that you do get when you do this, right? When you create a checkout, whatever, blah blah blah, and if you run the result, constant result, if you run the result, this is the kind of payload that you get. This is the kind of payload that you get. So if you look at the payload, there's some things we are interested in. For example, we are interested in the customer name, customer ID, and we're also interested in the customer external ID. Where do we get that? There, right? So that we can be able to sync our database, and because remember, on our application a user should be logged in, so we need to make sure like the same user that we have in our database, that's the same user we can be able to link. If we go on our Polar dashboard under customers, right, we can also be able to see that particular user based on their external ID as well, right? So something like this, you can see here, something like that, right? Good, perfect, right? So let's go now and create that route handler, right? So check out, I'm just gonna bring the code that I do have here, right, and explain to you what's going on, right? Okay, so I'm just gonna copy it and bring it here. There we go, and bring it here, right? So this is how to create a route handler in Nextjs. You actually need the next response or next request, just like that, right? Then on this route, we'll get hold of the search params, right? I'll show you how we're going to be getting those search params, and we'll need to get hold of the product ID. Obviously, this user should be authenticated, that is trying to buy something, should be authenticated, right? From that user who's already authenticated. Remember when I showed you a demo, you cannot buy a subscription if you're not authenticated. So it means obviously we know for sure there is a person behind who's been authenticated already. We'll get the product ID. If there's no product ID, we just throw an error says missing product ID, and this product ID will get it from our search params, right? And now we can create checkouts just like that. So mine, I've said it's Polar API. There are some custom fields that you can actually add here, right? For example, I need to make sure like I get hold of the customer external ID. This is exactly the one that we have in our database, right? So I need to set that. The email, the user can change perhaps their email on the checkout. It doesn't matter. They can change their name, it does not matter, but this external ID is very important for us. Then also the success URL, we also need to specify our own success URL. You can see here with success URL, it leads us to this, right? So this is when the payment is successful, we need to direct a user to this URL, and for that we actually already have a route here, right? You see everything in action, right? Okay, so what are we doing now? Once we create a checkout session, we just retain a redirect. So this redirect is to go to a page where user can actually be able to make a purchase. Otherwise, if there's an error, we just send back an error, right? So this is with regards to checkout sessions, to creating checkout sessions, right? Okay, cool. I'm gonna quickly run out my server, and I would like to try things out here, right? Right, my server is up and running, as you can see here, right? And would like to try things out, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna bring a new browser here, right? A new instance of a browser, right? And let's test things out. If I select a product here or a membership plan, for example, select premium, the fact that I'm not authenticated, I'll see an auth dialog, right? So that's the way we want our application to work, right? Because we want to get hold of the customer ID, external ID, want to get off the email and the username, right? Okay, so let's take a look at the component that's responsible for triggering this, right? Let's go on our code. If you go on our code under components, right? Components under home, right? Let's look at this component here. It says it's a plan card, right? You can see if there's no session, I need to trigger this auth dialog to open, right? And this session is from the user who's actually logged in, right? Okay, and you can see now on my endpoint, I'm actually reaching out to that route handler that we created /API/Polar/checkout, and for that I'm appending the product ID as well as the customer email and the customer name, right? For example, let me say if I try to comment these things out, it can work or it cannot work, but I just want to explain something here quickly, right? Let me do like that and let me hit save just like that. Okay, let's now go and authenticate ourselves. I'll click sign in. I'm gonna sign in with Google, right? So I'm gonna quickly sign in with Google with this account that we do have, right? So while that is happening under the hood, let me come back here, right? So you see on this windows.location.href, right? Sometimes if you just hit this API, if you're starting out, if you just hit this API, you won't see the fields which are pre-filled on your checkout page. You won't be able to see the pre-filled email or the name, right? So you need to have these, right? You need to have to create these to make sure like they are pre-filled on the checkout page. Let me show you what I'm trying to talk about, right? Now I'm authenticated. You can see there's an avatar here with this particular user account. I'll just now have to go ahead and select a membership plan. So I'm just going to select premium, right? Once I select that, I'll be redirected to the checkout page, right? You can see sandbox checkout / blah blah blah, right? So these are the things I've been talking about. This name, this email address, as well as this name. Sometimes they are not appended when you're trying the first time, right? So for you to make sure like these are appended already, you can just simply do this, right? You can just simply do this, what I'm showing you here, right? Exactly. Make sure on the /API/checkout product, you append the email and always the name. This is just a good customer experience because you wouldn't want them to come and fill these things again. You just need them to put their card number and select some other details here and you just hit subscribe, just like that, right? Okay, perfect. Okay, so if we go ahead to put the card number here and all other details, blah blah blah, etc etc, the thing that will happen is that yes, there'll be an entry into our Polar dashboard, but in our database we won't have the subscription information that's on Polar, right? For that we need webhooks, right? We need a webhook such that any event that happens on Polar, we get it on our application and we make an update into our database, right? Okay, so let me just hit save here, right? So we need to create now a webhook route, right? So there is a webhook route and I just have populated the code that I do have here, right? Okay, so before I explain this code, I just got it exactly from the documentation that I do have, right? So if you go on docs, Polar, webhooks, endpoint, since I'm using Nextjs, this is how I'm gonna do it, right? You need to create an endpoint. For example, add an endpoint to create that endpoint, and for that you need Ngrok, right? You need to use Ngrok so that you can be able to test things out locally, because these webhooks, they happen on HTTPS, but our local host is just HTTP, right? It's not secure, right? So for that we need to make use of Ngrok, right? So Ngrok is simple. Just go to Ngrok, just type Ngrok, sign in and sign up. Make sure you do an installation if you are using Windows like me. Download it and install it, right? Once you download and install it, then you can just run this in your terminal, right? So that you can be able to authenticate your particular app, right? For instance, right, I'm gonna create a new terminal just like that. Okay, then here I'll just fire up that Ngrok here. Okay, so it's gonna take a little bit of time. I can even fire it up here, right? Let me just remove this, right? So I'll just use this here, right, so that I can authenticate my machine, right? Okay, seems as everything is fine. Auth saved configuration file in this local blah 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 blah. That's it. So I'm authenticated here. I'm gonna fire up Ngrok, right? So I'll just copy this because I'm running on this port here. I'll just run it in my terminal, right? But before I do that, there are things I need to do, right? I need to set up the URL inside Polar, right? Inside Polar, I need to set up that URL. So let me copy this. Let me come to my terminal. Right, on my terminal here, let me run this, right? And hit enter since I'm port 3000. I'll get an URL, which is a secure URL, and that secure URL, I'll use it, right? So this is what we do. Copy this URL, just like that, right? Let me copy it again, just like that. And make sure you first of all come inside your auth.ts file inside your lib and make sure you put it here. Otherwise you have issues or errors, right, if you don't put it here, because auth Better-Auth also works with trusted origins, right? So make sure you put it here, right, just like that. Then you now go into your dashboard, settings, webhooks, right? And your webhooks endpoint on your application is actually found on this, whatever you get from Ngrok/API/Polar/webhook. That's basically what we did here, right? This is API, Polar, then webhook, right? That's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to update this. I'm going to just click where it says details, right? I've been having all these, right? So what I can do basically here, I can right, let me click where it says webhooks. I need to create a new endpoint. It will be this /API/Polar/webhook, just like that. Okay, then select a payload. I'm going to select raw, right? You can select these other things according to the documentation if you want to send your notifications to Discord or Slack, but in my case I just need the payload, which is raw, right? Then I can quickly generate a token here, a secret, right? I'll generate this secret. I'm going to populate it in my M file, right? Then I'm going to select the events that I need to listen to, right? I'm going to select all the events I need to listen to. I didn't create any benefits, so I don't need all these benefits, right? So exactly, that's that. It creates, say, the URL. What's wrong with the URL here? /API/Polar/webhook, right? Something wrong with the URL. It's got trailing spaces, so make sure you remove those trailing spaces. Hit create. Okay, webhook created successfully, right? So what I'm gonna do quickly, I'm just gonna remove my code editor from here so that I can populate my my secret for my webhook. I don't want to show you other secrets that I do have, so that's why I'm doing it on the side. All right, so that's done, that's out of the way. Then I can bring back this here, right? So we have an endpoint which is currently running, right? Which is currently running here, right? Now let's go into look into our code. But before we do that, let's quickly check the documentation here. Right, so on the documentation you create a secret and you have all these other things. So let's see, handle incoming webhook, right? So this is what you can follow if you're using JS, right? So that's basically what I'm following as well, right? So to handle events now, these are the payload, some kind of a payload that you get, right? So if the type of an event is checkout, you can do something. If the type is of subscription, so I'm interested in subscription created, updated and cancelled, right? So this is the payload that I do get. This is the payload I do get, right? So based on this payload that I do get, what am I going to do with that, right? So that's where now we do have route for handling our webhooks, right? So when a subscription is created, Polar is going to send me this webhook event, and from that webhook event I need to create a new entry into my subscription table. Sorry, I need to have the ID of that subscription, the product ID, then the user ID. This user ID is the customer external ID. This is the ID that matches the user that is signed up on our application, right? I'm gonna get other things like, current period ends. This is the payload we just get from subscription from Polar, from the subscription payload, right? Okay, so let's try things out. We still have our Ngrok instance running here, right? Ngrok instance running here. We're gonna try to create an entry, right? And for that, let's check if our Neon database, how many entries are in our Neon databases, right? So let's quickly check that, and let's bring this user who's already ready to sign up here, right? Okay, so it's still loading in, right? Let me look into the projects. I'm using this one here, right? And let me look in the tables. So on the tables, I should have the user subscriptions. Currently, I only have this one entry into my subscriptions, right? Although I have a lot of users, right? Let's see if we can have a new entry here, right? So let's fire up this user. So for a test card, you just need to put 424242. Keep on typing 42 up to you go to the next section, right? I'm gonna put expiration date to 426. I'm gonna use 126, right? I'm just gonna select a country, and I select a country which is currently Australia, just like that. There's no discount code, right? Okay, so if everything goes well, we should have a subscription inside Polar, and we should have webhook events coming to our application, right? So let me hit subscribe. The payment is processing. No thanks, I don't need to save this. Payment successful, getting your products ready. So which means this entry successfully, let's hope it's now available on the, what do you call it, on Polar. We now have a new customer, right? But it's not the end for us, right? It's not the end for us. So while things are still working on here, let's check on our code if we have anything happening, right? Okay, there you go. You can see there's a hit on our /API/Polar/webhook, right? There's an hit there, right? So which means I think this is really listening to the webhook, this server here, Ngrok. Right, we'll wait for it. Let's go back again here. The payment is still processing. In such a case, I can just quickly as well go into my Polar dashboard sandbox. Remember, we're testing things out, so it's still on the sandbox, right? So let me just refresh here, and okay. All right, so the webbox, so it's failed. There's just a failure. Subscription created, there's a failure. Not so sure what's happening. If I check in the customers, let's see which customers have been created. The customer is indeed created, right? The customer is indeed been created here, and the created date is this date here, right? So what does that mean? What is the date today? Okay, I'm just gonna quickly look at the date today where I'm doing this recording. It's actually the 15th. It's actually today. So why is my webhooks failing? We'll see what's failing, because if they fail, you won't have an entry. There we go. I do have an entry in the database, which means my webhook didn't fail, which means it kept on trying. I think so, right? Maybe it kept on trying. That's the nice thing with webhooks as well. If they fail, they'll keep on trying till something goes on, right? So there's a failure. Right, this is not good though. So based on your internet connection as well, it might affect how your webhook works, right? So there you go. At the end, there was actually a success. You can see the webhook's status inside Polar as well, right? Just like that. Finally, there was a successful, and we can see there's an entry inside our database, right? What about the user? What happened with the user? Something's still happening here. We should be redirected to a successful page from here, right? Should be directed to a successful page. Let me refresh. It's because I'm using slow internet, perhaps that's the reason why. But after this has been successful, you should be directed to a confirmation page, which is your checkout ID, right? Okay. All right, so this is what I'm talking about, right? You can see order confirmed, and this is the order ID, right? You can, this view order is not yet working, but you can have an option now to just go back to home once this is confirmed, right? So this is from our app to say you have purchased a subscription and everything works well, right? Right, now that we have tested our checkout, everything's working fine, we can have an entry into our database as well as a successful subscription in Polar, right? Then we also now need to check now on our dashboard, right? This is for the user. On our application, they should be able to go and check their membership status, right? And perhaps be able to update their membership status, right? Okay, so we are back again to those initial pages that we were on, right? You can see we need to create a customer portal link, right? And as well as perhaps if they are not yet subscribed, create a subscribe button, right? And also we need to get the membership data, right? So for that, we need a few files. We now need to bring a few files into our lib Polar/inside here, right? So the first file we need to bring is perhaps get membership data, right? So get membership data. So inside here we just create a new file. We're going to call this get membership data, right? Membership/data, just like that, .ts. Perfect, that like that, right? So now we need to know if the user has got membership, what kind of membership is it, right? So that when they're on the dashboard, they are able to see which plan they subscribe to, what are their rights or privileges, or what is it that is according to their membership, right? So I'm just gonna paste in some code that I do have here, right? I'm just gonna paste it here, right? So this is a server action sort of, right? Or a server function. For example, I'm gonna call it get Polar subscription. It's going to return a promise of subscription status, right? Obviously we need to make sure like the user is authenticated, so we're just gonna put an auth guard here, right? So if there's no session, we're just gonna return his active subscription, false, the message user not authenticated, then the subscription plan, you're just gonna set it to null, right? Okay, first of all, we need to fetch that subscription entry we entered into our database based on the user ID, right? Based on the user ID, right? So this is the user ID, which is the external ID, right? External ID, right? So in Polar it's external ID, but in our database it's user ID, right? So if there's no subscription, return false, and the message no subscription found, return nothing on the subscription plan, right? Otherwise, if there's a subscription, I'm just doing destructuring here, we need to know the status of that subscription, the product ID, so that we can be able to search the actual product ID, right? And as well, I'm fetching now subscriptions, right, from Polar itself, from the dashboard, right? I'm just getting that subscription, and I would like to know if it's active or it's not active, right? If it's active, then we can set the status to active, right? Then we just return subscription, active subscription. The message is active. If it's active, we say it's active. If it's not active, not active. Then we bring the subscription plan and also when the current date ends. All this information in terms of how do I know this, yeah, it's just on the documentation. Go under API, under subscription, you can see you can be able to get this, and there's a payload there. Then you can tweak it to a way that you need according to your application, right? Okay, so once we get a subscription, we also need to map the plans, right? So remember, you can do this on the Polar itself, you can write my markdown, but me, there's some things I need to have specifically for design purposes. So what I'm going to do, based on the product ID, I'm going to set that to standard, premium, or elite, right? So what we are doing at the end of this whole function here, what basically we need to do, we need to know if the user have got a subscription, what membership do they have, right? And also what subscription do they have. That's basically what we're doing, right? Okay, perfect. So let's hit save. And the next function we need to bring here is to be able to create a customer portal link, right? We just need a user to click on that link and be directed to Polar, where they can change their subscription, cancel, or update their subscription. So I'm gonna create a file that says get customer portal link. It's a long name, but it's descriptive enough. Get customer portal link, just like that. Okay, so to create a customer portal link, I'm gonna bring again the code that runs on the server. I'm gonna bring it here. Okay, and the most interesting part that I do have is just basically this one. So you can create a customer session, right? So for you to be able to go to a customer portal link that pertains to you as a user, you need these customer sessions, right? If we go on the documentation, you can be able to see all those things, right? So here we said it's create checkout sessions, right? You can create checkout links, right? And on customers as well, you see, you can get a customer session here, like for example subscription. You get a subscription. Where's the customer checkout sessions? There we go, sessions, create customer session, and this is the payload that you do get from there, right? Exactly, you need that to be able to go to that URL, right? Okay, right, so basically we do have this. Then it means we can update now these other pages that we do have. For example, here we can now uncomment here, right? And we can uncomment here, just like that. Exactly. Then we go to the dashboard sidebar, we can uncomment, and also yeah, it's uncommented and uncomment here. Okay, so my imports, right, then the result just like that. Let's go to the subscribe and comment as well, and also on top here and comment this as well, and hit save, right? Okay, so it's saying result cannot find the name result.url. Maybe there's a problem with my imports. I'm just gonna close these other things for now. This one went well. TypeScript is still giving me issues with this one. What I would do, I'll just remove it like that, as well as here. to make a clean import again, right? I'll just remove it just like that. Okay, so what I can do, get customer portal link. All right, just like that. I'll just make new imports just like that, and the TypeScript errors are gone. Hit save, and just here I'll hit save as well, right? So all the errors are gone. That means that if we come now to this user and just click here, back home, right? Back home, we want to go to the dashboard and be able to see the current subscription of that particular user, right? What are they subscribed to? And if they can be able to click on a button that takes them to the customer portal link, right? Okay, so let's hit sign in again, sign in with Google, just like that. Right, it's authenticating here. Perhaps I could do it with a different user as well. Right, there's the user that we're testing out things with. Right, when we signed up, this user selected premium. So let's see if it works. Click on this user, go to their dashboard and see which kind of subscription do they had. Don't worry about this data. This is hard-coded data. What you are really interested in is in this membership route and the billing route. So let's click on membership. Let's see what kind of subscription do they have. So there we go. They've selected premium, and there they are, right? Okay, so the user can select either to upgrade or downgrade, right? So for example, maybe 349 is expensive. Let's hit where it says downgrade, right? Then a checkout, customer session, checkout session is created just like that. This is what we're talking about, right? So what is responsible for this? It's what we're talking about on our code, which is customer portal link, right? We create customer sessions here, right? Customer sessions, that's what we created. So this is what is responsible for sending us to that portal that we do see here, right? Then the user can be able now to change a plan from here, right? Okay, let's test things out to see if our webbook is still working as well, right? So let's change a plan. Instead of having premium, we're gonna change to standard, right? So let's hit change a plan here, right? And you can see the plan has been changed to 199, right? Yes, but there should be a success URL that directs me to my application, but in this case I just have to do it manually, right? So I'm still working on that. So I'll just hit go back to be taken back to the page I was. You can see now I'm back, and the current plan is now standard, just like that, right? Okay, let's look at another user. This user is just signed up on our application but does not have a current subscription, right? Before we proceed with that, I just want to check if our webhooks really reflected here. I'm sure they did, right? You can see there was an entry as well here, right? Which means it's still working, our webhooks, right? Let's now try this user who does not have a subscription as yet, right? So this is how it will show on their UI, right? It will show, it doesn't show like current plan or upgrade or downgrade, right? Okay, so this user wants to select this particular one. So let's create subscribe. Let's click what says subscribe here, right? The other thing I need to do as well is to put some sort of an indication, right? It's just good UI, right? It says failed to create a checkout session because there could be an error with this particular user here, right? So for that, I still need to handle that, right? But it's something that I'll work out in the next tutorial, right? But everything seems to be working fine right now. I'll just make an update to solve this error. Then every update will be available on GitHub, right? Okay, so let's go to the authenticated user that we do have with the checkout session. Let's try to click where it says billing, right? If you click where it says billing, you see a loading here, right? Loading, and you are again directed to the customer portal and be able to change your plan and manage your billing from here. right? So everything seems to be working fine and perfect. All right, like I said, this project is still work in progress. There's some UI elements I need to work on, but I need to just show you this. You can see once a customer has purchased a subscription, they do have an entry inside their inbox, right, which says your subscription to premium is now active, and they've got access to my purchase, right? It will take them straight to Polar, right? So which is something which is great. So let's hit where it says access my purchase and see where it takes out to. So it takes out to that customer portal, right, where they can view a subscription or change a plan, which is something which is amazing, right? And also, as the user, as the SaaS owner, right, or the managers of the SaaS, we can be able to come inside our dashboard, check out who the customer is, right? We can check out the sales, how much we've made so far, right? So this is it, ladies and gentlemen, how you can implement Polar and build a beautiful SaaS. If you're interested in this video, please follow me on Twitter. I'll be sharing some good tweets there and also some freebies which are coming along the way. Thank you.